Hello, so it's Key again, and I'm here to talk about a relatively recent makeup trend. It's the fox eye trend. I'm calling it a trend because it's sort of been going around as a TikTok challenge, but before that it was called shoot, which one of the Western celebrities is it? I can't remember any of them. Bella Hadid eyes. Pretty much the look involves your eyeliner and sort of the way you shade your eyeshadow and your eyebrows. Specifically, the challenge on TikTok is shaving off half of your eyebrow around from the arch, and then drawing it higher, which is supposed to make your face sort of go like, and look more like a snatched Insta baddie look, I guess. It's supposed to mimic Bella Hadid's makeup style. And when it comes to the eye makeup, it sort of involves dragging your eyeshadow upwards, sort of like this. I'm not doing it that well. I didn't do it that well because my eyeliner sort of goes down and I don't have fake lashes, but it involves sort of drawing like this eyeliner which goes upwards and then positioning your lashes so that they sort of follow the top of the eyeliner, so it makes your eyes look like they're sort of arching upwards, or almond-shaped eyes. Pretty much what you're really aspiring to do with your makeup is make your eyes look sort of as if someone is pulling at them. The tea. So, that's where the problem comes in. It's not just about making it look like someone's pulling at your eyes, but along with this trend comes people actually pulling at their eyes. In fact, white people pulling at their eyes. This is really where the problem comes. The actual makeup look itself, I mean, we could discuss why there's a sort of issue in that, but there's nothing wrong with making your eyes look the way Bella Hadid does her makeup. There's nothing wrong with this, like, fox eye look. It's specifically this motion of pulling your eyes, which is upsetting many Asian Americans and Asians, because it's a motion which has been heavily related to racism against Asians. Because often people make fun of Asian eyes by pulling their eyes and being like, we're all Chinese, or that we all can't speak English, or whatever. And I guess when I saw it, this did also rub me the wrong way, because despite the fact that I, in 2020, live in New York City, in Manhattan no less, have had people go like this to me. And that's just like, it doesn't quite insult me as much as it just, like, baffles me that in this day and age, people are still thinking that, one, that's still insulting, I'm just embarrassed for you. Two, that just because I'm not insulted, that you're still racist. It's not funny. And if you do that at me, and I'm like, sorry, that's racist, don't do that, and you tell me I'm being too sensitive or that it's just a joke, you're in fact still racist. Not you as a viewer, but just the person, the people who do that. And in many cases, I believe the people who are doing this challenge or trend don't actually realize what their action is sort of connotating, and why exactly it's offensive. But for many Asian Americans and Asians, when you see that, there's no way you could ignore the racist aspect to it, especially since a lot of people have experienced heavy bullying because of the way they look as an Asian, and especially related to their eyes. And I think I'll get into this later on in the video, towards the end, but with the, I guess, model minority myth, or sort of just like the downplayment of Asian racism against Asians, a lot of times that sort of bullying is overlooked or isn't called out as often because it's called a joke, or it's called less important than bullying to other races or other factors, just because strictly, I guess, in a financial or like a job opportunity, opportunity to rise in society. Often, compared to other racial minorities, Asians do get it better, but that doesn't erase the fact that there is racism against Asians, especially based on how they look, or specific character traits or personality traits which are connected or stereotyped with us. Especially sort of for East Asians, I think it's really heavy with seeing in media with East Asian women being seen as sort of exotic or these sort of like sexualized beings. I guess this has been around for quite a while, since as long as Asians have been in America. White men often are like, wow, sexy, submissive, exotic. And I guess just because of all of those factors, when us Asians, many of us see this trend and see so many people going like this, it's just really concerning.
Seeing this trend, it makes me feel like my whole world is crashing down on me right now. I grew up in a predominantly all-white town. On a daily basis, I was called Ling Ling, Ming Mei, and then when I got to a certain age, people were like, oh my god, your eyes aren't even that Asian. They're not that Asian, and I didn't even know what I did. I was like, oh my god, thank you. Thank you. It wasn't until I really thought about it, I realized I was fucking brainwashed. I understand cat eye eyeliner. I understand you think it's pretty, but this ain't it, guys. This ain't it. As an Asian American, it ain't it.
If you search up the fox eye on YouTube, a lot of the videos, quite a large number of the search I found had people actually doing that, and I checked on a lot of the videos, and no one was really calling them out. And if you look on TikTok, there are so many really large accounts which are doing it, and I'm not getting emotional, by the way. I'm literally just coughing. Not because I have corona. I don't. Gosh darn, maybe I'm just coughing because whenever I walk out anywhere in public, I like, don't cough. Don't cough. If you cough, someone's gonna attack you. Don't cough. For like the past handful of months. But regardless, just there are a lot of people who are doing it without seemingly knowing what's up, and no one's really calling them out for it, or no one is seeing what's wrong with it, and I guess that's sort of the problem, which a lot of people find with this challenge. But also, I guess there is a lot of celebrities who have been taking part in this challenge. More often, the celebrities have been called out. I guess the two which I guess are like the biggest names or have been talked about the most, would be Gigi Hadid posted a photo going like this, and a lot of people called her out on that. There was a video about it, which I'll link below, where Chloe Bennett, who, by the way, is half Asian. I didn't know that. But she had called out Gigi Hadid for her pose and was like, that's not acceptable. And actually, I guess Gigi is dating Zayn from One Direction. And he, being Asian, still defended her. It was like, I didn't find it offensive. And if you are Asian and didn't find it offensive, that's great for you, and honestly, you're lucky to have not really experienced anything which made you find it offensive. But if you don't really understand it, then that means, like, that doesn't devalue the people who have gone through it and have experienced that, especially if you aren't an Asian female, and you're saying, oh, well, I haven't seen anything like that. Like, it's not really your place to say that, and there are a lot of people who are offended.
This trend of white models doing this pose and calling it the fox eye has got to stop. This is not the fox eye. It's an Asian eye you're doing, and our eyes are not yours to approach.
And specifically the celebrities, other celebrity was Emma Chamberlain, who had posted the same pose and had gotten a lot of backlash or people commenting, you shouldn't be doing this as an Asian follower or as an Asian fan of yours. I'm offended, or I think you should be more aware about what that action connotates. which is great, and she took down the post. I guess with celebrities, especially, there are more people, especially more older people, or more, I guess, I wouldn't say wise, but just people who know a bit better. And I think they're also in the tension of like a wider range of people, whereas in TikTok I feel like there's much more niches, which is probably the reason why the people who are posting these sort of makeup challenges aren't really getting called out on it as much. Maybe because there's like less interaction with your followers or whoever's watching you. Yeah, but I guess that's sort of the problem with that. But oh, I'm coughing again. Yeah, but regardless, like it still is an issue which really hasn't been addressed that largely. And it also ties into a larger issue of cultural appropriation of ethnic features, or pretty much white women taking ethnic features and then making themselves have those features, or doing makeup, shaping their body to look like features of a different race, and then suddenly being complimented for it, for the features which on the other races is looked down upon. And I'll cue in a TikTok which actually explains this really well.
There is nothing more annoying than having a white person, a mayo, a vanilla, an unseasoned, tell me something about my facial features, talking about my nose or my lips. I'm sorry. Y'all made fun of Asian people for having slanted eyes, but now it's cute, and we call it fox eyes, Bella Hadid eyes. Y'all made it the standards to be flat in the 20s, but now it's a Kim K body. Y'all made it cute to get big lips, but now it's called Kylie Jenner lips. How's it every single time in our society we are naming ethnic features after white women that get surgery? What you gonna do? Colonize my fucking lips? You gonna gentrify my fucking facial features?
Yeah, so that was that. I'm sort of going to talk about this more, but I realized I should probably put that first because I don't want to be that person who's like taking the words of a black woman or a minority girl and then suddenly claiming it's my own, because that's what I'm here to call out. So I was like, wait, I probably shouldn't do that, which is why I included that. I'll also include a bunch of other sources which I've seen down below. I watched a bunch of other YouTube videos of people who are talking about this or talking about similar issues, just to see if what's already been said, what hasn't been said. And yeah, so getting on, I guess the underlying issue, more than the just obvious don't do that motion. Like, I feel like I shouldn't have had to speak about this for like 10 whole minutes. But yeah, just don't pull back your eyes. But aside from that, there is this issue of white women getting the ownership and I guess like the rights to these features which are not their own. Because if you look at Bella Hadid when she's younger, she didn't have those snatched eyes or whatever. She didn't have those fox eyes. She suddenly chose to look that way, and she was praised for it. But at the end of the day, she could take that off. She could wipe off all of her makeup. She could fix up her face and go back to looking normal and white. Well, not white. I don't know why I said white in that voice. Like, she could look whiter. She still looks white, but you know. I think the problem is just that she's getting to have these Asian eyes without the repercussions which come with it, and without the racism against her, which comes with people who are actually Asian, who actually have these eyes. And it also, like the video had talked about, is this larger issue with a lot of these types of celebrities, which is why, oh god, I'm not keeping up with American celebrities, and I'm honestly pretty glad I just stick to the K-pop scene sometimes. Actually, I realized what it is. I was eating popcorn, and there's definitely like a popcorn kernel stuck in my throat. Like, I could actually feel it. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so, shoot, where was I at? Yeah, I'm glad I don't. I mean, obviously, K-pop also has its problems with cultural appropriation and sort of insensitivity when it comes to different cultures, especially since a lot of East Asian cultures are very closed off or aren't very aware of certain other ethnic groups or certain other cultures, especially when it comes to like Black culture. which causes a lot of cultural appropriation, just insensitivity. But in this case, with these Western celebrities, it's very much more deliberate, and it's not particularly ignorance which is causing it. Especially if you see people like Kylie Jenner or Kim Kardashian, they know whose features they are taking. You cannot tell me that when Kylie Jenner was like, "Oh, I want bigger lips," she didn't like she knows what race having bigger lips is affiliated with or connected to, I guess. Or even if she didn't, she definitely knew when she had the hair tied back, like she had a ponytail with a yaki hair. Yaki hair? I don't know how to pronounce it particularly, but she used sort of like hair which is often used for like weaves or to braid in with your own hair by black women. And she had decided to do a hairstyle using that hair. And there was no way she could have just been like, yeah, some nice hair. Like, you know where you're getting that from. You know where you're getting that style from. You know who that hair was intended to be used by. And it's not necessarily bad to, I guess, take part in other people's culture. Like, I guess the biggest example I could always think of is with a kimono. It's fine when white women or Westerners go to Japan and they wear a kimono in Kyoto or in Tokyo or whatever for cultural experiencing reasons. There are a lot of companies in Kyoto which will let tourists wear the kimono and like have the experience of being authentically historically Japanese and sort of like dipping your feet into that sort of like culture and that like experience. And it's fine if you decide like, oh, I want to try geisha makeup just as like an art style. Like, no one's going to be offended by that if you do that properly and you do that in the context where it's appropriate. But when it's not okay and when people do get offended, it's because people are using it as a joke. People are using it in the wrong context. Like when people use like sexual kimonos as like Halloween or party costumes, like that's not really your clothing to be turning into this sort of like, I wouldn't call it like a joke, but like a costume. Like, it's someone's culture. It's not like you shouldn't, that like it's not something for you to like claim for one day just because you think it'd be fun. Like, yeah, like with why is there an issue when people dress up as Pocahontas for Halloween? I'm just gonna throw in here, I used to be obsessed with like Native American culture when I was younger. And then afterwards, in like late lower school / middle school, I had a phase where I was like really worried. I was like, wait, when I was younger, was I being cultural appropriated? Coughing again. Anyway, but like I guess not like one, I wasn't really like dressing up as Pocahontas or anything. I just thought it was like a cool cultural thing, and I went to museums and I was like, can I see the Native American exhibit, please? Actually, I think people do sort of have a problem with the phrase Native American, or I guess, or like I guess I'll just call it like Native culture, or various tribes and things like that. I was interested in, especially in like the New York region, but that's the difference between someone being interested in a culture. Like, I was like, if you're interested in Japanese culture and you're like, I like kimonos, I'm really interested in like how kimonos are made, I want to see how you don't even need to be that interested. If you're just like, yeah, I like Japan, I went to Japan, I wore a kimono because I thought it was part of the experience, like, that's fine. But if you're like, yep, one day I want to wear this and be like, ooh, I'm sexy because I'm wearing this insert some racist words here, outfit, haha, like, that's not okay. And I guess this also ties into a Kim Kardashian situation with her brand kimono, and how she was using this sort of I guess it was just like a clothing line of like skinwear. I think she called it like Skims. Haha, funny, it's a pun. Eventually, but at first she was trying to call it kimono, and that was met with some criticism, because I mean, I don't really have that much of a problem with it if you want to name like an outfit which isn't a kimono. It's just like, it's weird, but it's like I guess you can, but it's sort of just like, is it really your place to be taking part of our culture, my culture, as I'm Japanese, FYI, which is why I've been bringing up Japan a lot, because I'm like, oh yeah, I love kimonos, let me bring it up as many times as I can in one video. It was just like something that was convenient, I know a lot about, but like, it's a bit weird when you're not related to that culture, you don't really have ownership of it, and suddenly you're like, oh, I think it's sort of trendy if I name my fashion brand Kimono. Like, that's a bit weird, you know? But I guess specifically with this, it's about like people claiming features, which I think is a lot worse than with like a name of a fashion brand, because like you could call it whatever you want, but when you're trying to claim ownership to someone's facial features and someone's like body, that's where it gets really problematic. And you could see that sort of with like the Kylie Jenner lips. Going back to what the video was saying, like historically having sort of big lips was mocked a lot of times in like racist cartoons. People would draw really big lips as like a joke for black people or black people's features. But then suddenly when this white girl who did not have big lips originally, it wasn't like she was like, I also have big lips, and I see you fellow people with big lips having people criticize how you look because of it. I want to, make this more mainstream. Like, no, she had her small little lips, and I was like, I shouldn't really be making fun of her. But the point is, she did not have those lips naturally, and suddenly she was like, yeah, I think it'd be cool if I had big lips, and then she got big lips, and then everyone was like, oh, Kylie Jenner lips, Kylie Jenner lips. Like, those aren't Kylie Jenner's lips. That's whoever put the silicone in there's lips, or whatever. Whoever does her lip injections. In the first place, those aren't her lips. Maybe she paid for them, but, those still aren't her lips. Because big lips were not invented by Kylie Jenner. In the same way that having this sort of curvy figure was not in fact invented by Kim Kardashian. And there are so many people who have been made fun of for having that body shape, for having those lips, for having those features, for having these eyes, that it's not fair that when a white woman suddenly thinks, oh, I sort of like this for myself, I like this look, suddenly then it becomes a trend. Like, our facial features are not a trend. Anyone's facial features are not a trend. Whatever your facial features may be, like, that's yours, that's beautiful, that's you, and no one has a right to suddenly claim them. That's just messed up. The underlying problem with these Bella Hadid eyes, those were not her eyes. She wasn't born with these eyes. She didn't have to be made fun of for many years for having these eyes, the way that, what's her name again? Kylie Jenner did not have to live with people making fun of her for lips, for having big lips, or Kim Kardashian didn't have people saying that her, Kim K braids, her boxer braids, didn't make her professional enough. She didn't have to experience that racism to have that hairstyle. She didn't invent that. Boxer braids have been around for like centuries, and black women have been using that to like keep protecting their hair because like of their hair texture, and that's part of their culture, and hair braiding is part of black culture. Part of, I wouldn't call it white culture, but part of our history as a nation of America, just in general, is that white people have been oppressing and looking down on black women for their hair and for their braids and for the texture of their hair, and saying that's not professional enough, saying you can't wear that in a school setting, in a work setting, that makes them look ghetto, or that makes them look not suited for the environment. So that's why it's not fair when a white woman decides to make that a trend, and then everyone likes it then. So that's that. But also, like, I guess specifically when it comes to the fox eye trend, I think there are a lot less people calling it out, or seeing the issue with it, and I guess that's concerning to me, and I think concerning to other people as well, because racism against Asian Americans, or Asians specifically, often gets overlooked or toned down because it's not as important or not as extreme as other forms of racism. And obviously, racism is different for each person, but it's not a competition. Like, you don't need to be the most oppressed to be oppressed. And I think you see this a lot with white men or white people in general, or sort of any group in power sort of trying to claim oppression. And this isn't like a competition. Like, it doesn't matter if you've had struggles in your life too. We're not invalidating them by also having struggles. And I guess it's also especially concerning when white people are telling Asians that their struggles aren't good enough to be considered. Especially in the current situation with Corona, there is a lot of very evident, very violent and clear racism against Asians, and it has to be addressed. And by sort of brushing these trends or whatever off as not important enough, we're missing a chance to talk about a bigger issue. And we're sort of letting this go by again. And I think if this trend, instead of this was like blackface trend, everyone would know that's messed up. If anyone started a blackface challenge, even if you're white, you would know that's wrong. But when it's pulling eyes, while so many Asians know that that's wrong because they've had it done against them, white people don't realize what that action connotates. And I guess that's concerning because it just ties into the bigger issue of how the model minority myth sort of helps gloss over or cause people to forget or not pay attention to racism against Asians. And I'm not going to go into, I guess, more of, I guess, the model minority myth or specifically the larger issues with racism against Asian Americans or Asians, because that's just, we're already at 30 minutes. Like, it's going to take quite a while, and I'm not even sure if I really can explain it the best without planning it out more, which I didn't. I vaguely wrote out what I wanted to say, by which I mean I opened a bunch of tabs with certain ideas I had. But I guess this is just, I wanted to make people hear more about this so that they're more aware. And hopefully this sort of trend going on TikTok or whatever, people will be more aware and be able to educate other people. This isn't really my usual content. Hopefully you didn't dislike it. Maybe comment your opinions or if you've had any similar experiences. If you didn't really want to see this type of content, I'm sorry. I just thought it should be addressed. And I'll actually be doing a fox eye tutorial in my next video, and I will show how you don't actually need to be pulling your eyes to give yourself the full extent of the aesthetic or snatchiness. That's it. Honestly, I'm out of words currently, and I don't really know what to say. And this is the tea.
Because of her high eyelashes, you just make sure the Chinese baby. It's always round and big so they pop, not the Chinese looking, because that's not good for her face.
Fox eyes are cultural appropriation. If you had Asians in your school, then it's likely you've heard or seen someone making fun of their eye. And if not, it's likely you've seen it in the media on some of your favorite celebrities. Regardless, when multiple people from a culture say something is offensive, there are two things you can do: listen and research. Have you ever heard of double eyelid surgery? It was popularized in America in the 1950s following the 1945 War Act that allowed American soldiers to bring their Asian wives back into the States to marry them. Because xenophobia was so heavy in the US, Asians were looked at as emotionless or scary because of the way that some of their eyes were shaped. An American military surgeon, David Ralph Miller, introduced double eyelid surgery to America, a procedure that he perfected by working on Korean children and teens while stationed in Korea. This form of assimilation allowed Asians to have a more Western look, which was deemed more beautiful.